Although the Gothenburg or Town class had occupied much of Swedish destroyer construction in the 1930s, the outbreak of World War II, plus the explosion and fire in 1941 that had taken the Gothenburg and the earlier destroyer Class Horn temporarily out of action and permanently destroyed the Class Uggla, meant that the start of the 1940s found the Swedish Navy in need of more destroyers to ensure it could maintain a meaningful deterrent and thus enforce Sweden's neutrality. Money was therefore allocated for a new class of 4 ships. The Gothenburg class was taken as a basis for the new design, but there was a desire to fix or improve a number of features, and that would need a bigger ship. To keep costs down, the stern of the new design was changed from a rounded version to a transom or cut-off stern. This would allow a larger ship to keep the same speed of 39 knots as the Gothenburgs, but without any increase in overall machinery power output. It had also been noted that since Swedish destroyers were relatively small, being armed with only 3 main guns, a wide arc of fire was needed, and on the previous class the position of the second gun as built, between the funnels, had significantly restricted its arc of fire. To address this, the boilers were slightly rearranged, which allowed the funnels to be placed closer together. This freed up space aft and allowed the second gun to be relocated to a super-firing position aft right from the start. The final result was a ship that displaced around 1,150 tons standard, an increase of just over 100 tons, still capable of 39 knots courtesy of 3 boilers, yielding 35 to 36,000 shaft horsepower, with the third boiler giving a degree of immediate flexibility in terms of steam supply to the 2 screws. The main armament consisted of a trio of single 120mm or 4.7 dual-purpose guns, 1 forward and 2 super-firing aft, with 1 twin and 2 single 40mm Bofors cannon also mounted, the singles mounted on the wings and the twin mounted on a platform just aft of the funnels. They were supplemented by 4 single Bofors 20mm cannon with 1 pair either side of the funnels and another pair either side of the bridge, and a pair of triple torpedo tubes, 4 and aft of the twin 40mm mount, completed the anti-surface armament outside of a handful of machine guns, and for underwater warfare, there were 2 pairs of depth charge launchers, and of course this being a Swedish vessel, space for over 40 mines. 4 ships were built: Visby, Sundsvall, Helsingborg and Kalmar, all of which were laid down in 1942, launched in late 1942 and early 1943, and all commissioned in mid to late 1943 with the exception of the Kalmar, which entered service at the start of February 1944. After a brief service guarding the Swedish coastline at the tail end of World War II, the ships would serve on into the Cold War for quite some time. With the surface threat becoming more and more replaced by a submarine and air threat, the vessels were reclassified as frigates in the 1950s, and that decade the Kalmar and Helsingborg underwent minor modifications. The 40mm Bofors were replaced by updated models, but the larger size and greater amount of equipment attached to these meant that the aft torpedo launchers were removed. The twin Bofors mount was then moved slightly aft into the approximate place of the aft triple launcher, and the forward triple torpedo tube launcher thus had the space to be replaced with a quintuple launcher, which meant that overall there was only the loss of a single torpedo in firepower. Since this also left a little deck space spare, it was decided to up the mine capacity from around 40 to no less than 130. The following decade, Visby and Sundsvall were given a far more extensive refit. The 120mm guns were removed, replaced by 2 single Bofors 57mm automatic guns, 1 fore and 1 aft. The super-firing aft 120mm mount, the twin 40mm mount, and the torpedo launchers were all replaced with a helicopter landing platform and a quadruple heavy anti-submarine rocket launcher. The other light anti-aircraft guns were also removed to save weight, which allowed them to install an improved radar, and much like the other 2 ships, mine capacity was expanded to carry 130 mines. As a result, the older pair of ships were actually now much more useful, and the newer pair, Helsingborg and Kalmar, were the first to be decommissioned in 1978. The former being scrapped and the latter being used as a target ship for the Swedish Air Force for a few years before it was also scrapped. Visby and Sundsvall left service in 1982 and were then used as target practice for the RBS-15 anti-shipping missile system before they were also scrapped.
That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or suggestion for a ship to review, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to comment on the pinned post for dry dock questions.